slap? A little while ago I was given this old Nintendo DS. The person who gave it to me told me it's still powered on, but the shell was cracked, scratched up and it's falling apart. When I opened it up and turned it on for the first time, I could see that the bottom screen also had all these weird defects on it, almost like little pixel clusters or dots. It was definitely in rough shape, but there was something about it that made me want to bring it back. Now, the person I'm fixing this for is a big fan of Yoshi. She had this DS for a really long time and played a lot of her favorite games on it. So I thought instead of just repairing it, I tried to make it into something really special. So let's see how this will turn out. I am Paul and this is my little mod shop. So for this project I was in close contact with her husband, because I wanted to design something custom for it, something that would make it truly hers. He was also the one that talked me through her favorite games, but ultimately we ended on the Yoshi theme because of the Yoshi purse she has, which was a great first step into the design. The DS I got was originally pink, so I decided to stick with that color and ordered a replacement pink shell from AliExpress. I also picked up a new bottom LCD screen and a new digitizer for the touch panel. And there is still the original battery in it. It's crazy that this thing still holds a charge after being thrown in the back of a drawer for all these years. We will definitely swap this one out for a fresh lithium-ion battery. There's also nothing fancy on it, just the usual aftermarket parts you can find online. The cool part though is going to be the shell, because instead of swapping it, I wanted to print this custom Yoshi theme directly onto it using my Make E1 UV printer. That way the outside of the DS would be completely custom and personal. But before we go into the actual printing, I had to prep the design. I opened up Photoshop and started working on it. Since I was going with Yoshi as the centerpiece, I pulled some official artwork from the DS game, Yoshi's Island DS, and built the layout around that. I also added some smaller details for the inside of the shell too, like some eggs and other small Yoshi designs. Getting it to get right took a bit of trial and error, scaling things up and down, nudging them around, but eventually I had something I was really happy with. Now with the design finished, I moved on to the printing. The Make printer makes this part surprisingly easy. All I really had to do was clean the new shell to make sure there weren't any fingerprints or oils on it, because otherwise the UV ink won't stick long term. Once it was wiped down, I placed it on the print bed and the machine automatically scanned it for me to preview. Here I just needed to place the design and off we go. Is what I would say if I didn't have a little more to add. You see, the E1 UV printer has this awesome feature where you can build up layers of ink. This means you could practically print 3-dimensional. I mean, it's only 5mm max in height, but still. This opens the door to make this design really interesting. So I decided to experiment with different layer heights. And to not ruin the shell by not knowing how the print quality would reflect on the shape of the DS, I 3D printed some brackets that mimic the angles of the top shell. This makes experimenting a little bit easier. And to be honest, I was glad to see that there was not too much to worry about. The first round was not that promising as I just had it set to 0.3mm layer height, but with 1.4mm the colors really came out poppin'. For the final rendition that goes on the real shell, I've set my layer height to 2mm, so the Yoshis on the corners also get enough color to shine. This is the result of the top cover and I must say it looks stunning. For the rest of the design I chose to not print directly onto the shell, but rather use stickers to put the designs exactly where I wanted them to be. I printed them in a few different sizes to make sure they fit the vibe of the shell and everything isn't looking too bulky or overloaded. And this is what I came up with. What do you guys think? And also, let's talk about today's sponsor, PCBWay. Whether you are into electronics, 3D printing or just love tinkering with tech, PCBWay has you covered. They're best known for the fast and reliable PCB prototyping, but they also handle full assembly so your project can show up ready to go. And it doesn't stop there. With CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding and even vacuum casting, PCBWay has basically become a one-stop shop for makers. The pricing is fair, the service is friendly and it honestly is one of the easiest ways to keep your ideas moving from concept to finished product. So big thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video and you can find more information in the description down below. Now let's put together this custom DS. Now with the shell ready, it's time for the actual repair work. For this project I only need the basics. A small Phillips head screwdriver, a Nintendo Classic, the tri-wing screwdriver and maybe a pair of tweezers or pliers. That's it. Opening up the DS isn't too difficult, but it can be a little fiddly because of all the ribbon cables inside. I started by removing the battery cover and the old worn out battery. Then I unscrewed all the tiny screws on the back panel and carefully separated the two halves of the case. Once inside, you've got the motherboard sitting across the middle with several ribbon cables running to the screens and the digitizer. And this little cable here is the Wi-Fi antenna. The ribbon cables are all secured with these little latches, so I flipped each one open and slid the ribbons out one by one. Now with those disconnected, I could finally pull out the old bottom screen. It came out really easily once I peeled back the foam adhesive holding it in. The screen looked even worse outside the case than it did powered on. All those little dots and defects were spread across it, making it not really usable. So out with them and the old digitizer, and hello to the new one, in just a second. Before that, we still need to disassemble the top screen. You see those 4 rubber pads here, right? Those need to get out of the way to reveal 4 additional screws, holding the top half of the DS together. And once they're out, I use some careful prying to separate the cover. Okay, so the old shell is so brittle that it just breaks. Once we're in it, we see the back of the screen of course, but also the antenna and the speakers. To get the ribbon cables out of the hinge, we need to first unscrew this part right here. The screw for that is located in the bottom part of the shell. And with that one out, we have some fiddly work to get the ribbons out in one piece. To get really everything out of the shell, we just need to get these last 2 screws out, and we have successfully disassembled the whole Game Boy. Can I say that? Is the Nintendo DS a Game Boy? Because it's its own console, right? Because it has dual screen, but it still can play Game Boy games, so that makes it a Game Boy, or not? Okay, so before I begin to throw everything into our new custom shell, I need to clean up the PCB, which is an easy task with a little bit of IPA and a toothbrush. Let's start with the top screen once again. Same steps as before, in reverse order of course. I'll be extra careful not to dent the artwork in any way, so I use this bubble wrap that came with one of the screens and use it for padding here. And with the top screen fully assembled, I let it rest on the side, so we can concentrate on the bottom shell now. I had seen people not really gluing the digitizer to the bottom screen, as it will snugly fit in the concave area right here. Seems to work fine to me. Next, I drop in the new bottom LCD screen, drop all the new buttons in, and reconnect all the ribbon cables back into the motherboard. At this stage, it is important to marry the 2 shell halves together with the hinge, because when the board is fully screwed down, we no longer have access to the screw. Once that is done, I screwed the board back down and double checked that all the buttons and contacts were sitting where they should be. Then it's just connecting some more ribbon cables, reattach the Wi-Fi antenna, and checking if the shoulder buttons are sitting in there the right way. Finally, we can close up the shell with the 7 screws just as before. The last internal step was sliding in the new 850 mAh battery. It is a direct replacement for the original, so no mods needed, just a clean swap. With that in place, I reattached the battery cover, pressed the power button and held my breath. The green light came on and gladly both screens lit up. The top screen was fine as expected, but what I really was waiting for was the bottom screen. And sure enough, it looked crystal clear. No more dots, no more dead areas, just a bright, responsive screen. Or at least as bright as a Nintendo DS screen can get. I tapped around with the stylus to check the digitizer and it worked perfectly. Everything felt solid and responsive. Remember, this was a beat up, half-broken handheld with a cracked shell and a ruined screen. Now it's a bright, shiny DS with a brand new display and a custom design that makes it totally unique. And it kind of looks like a limited edition model that looks even better than those Nintendo released back in the day, in my own humble opinion of course. So what started as a broken old handheld turned into a custom-made, one-of-a-kind DS that she could play her favorite games on again. For me, that is what makes a project like this so rewarding. It's not just about fixing a screen or swapping a shell, it's about taking something with history and memories behind it and making sure it has a future too. So thank you for watching. If you'd like what you saw, I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel and leave a like, so maybe more people can see what can be done with old consoles. I also did kind of the same thing for another friend of mine. If you want to see how that went, this is the next video to watch.